So I'm going to introduce the next speaker. I had the great privilege of meeting her back in 2011 in America, a couple of years ago, and she does really great work. How many has heard of Primal Med Ed, the blog? There you go. They know who you are. I got to meet her and interviewed you on the Living La Vida Low Carb show earlier this year. Brand new doctor, but she already gets it about nutrition. I think you're going to really enjoy what you hear from Dr. Anastasia Boulais.
Thank you, Jimmy. I have to lower this quite a lot compared to Jimmy's. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, let's just make sure that I know how to operate this forward and back. All right, thank you for having me here today. It's really great to see you all, and I think we're all sort of here combined with the same purpose. We're talking about being slightly dissatisfied with some of the advice that we have been given over the last 30 to 50 years, and probably quite dissatisfied with the direction that our waistlines and our health is moving at the moment. So there seems to be quite a lot of evidence to say that our war on saturated fat might have been a little misguided, probably an understatement of the century. And there is quite a lot of evidence to say that a low-carb diet has been beneficial for both health and weight loss. What is low-carb? If you tell your friends I'm following a low-carb diet, I'll bet you they will think any of those things. And I'm here to talk to you about a paleo diet, and that has stereotypes of its own, and they don't look very good either. So is low carb paleo? Not quite, because the focus of low carb diet on its own is just to focus on a quantity of a particular macronutrient, carbohydrate, so the quantity generally trumps quality. Is paleo low carb diet? Possibly, because you're going to be eliminating most of the carbohydrates in our sort of processed society, but the eliminating Neolithic foods leaves you with the old foods, and can you eat as much sweet potato if you want if you're a diabetic, or can you eat as much honey as you want because that's technically a Paleolithic food. So how do we combine these two strategies to get the best of both worlds? I look at paleo slightly differently, and I think the way to look at it is through an evolutionary prism. When people ask me how I eat, this is what I say, but then they look at me funny and they just go, oh, I eat paleo. So I see it as a lifestyle and nutritional framework that relies on food high in nutrient value, appropriate to our species, and has its basis in evolutionary principles. It's a mouthful, so most of the time people just glaze over and go, yeah, I eat paleo. Why is there a problem with it? And this is why I think we need to understand what evolutionary principles are. There is no single Paleolithic diet. And from the Inuits in the north to the Pacific Isles to Africa, people eat different foods even now. And obviously there are chronological differences. People who are living in the Ice Age ate quite differently to those who were living at warmer times. And that's not even to say that this steak, the beef steak that you're having right now, is technically from this species that didn't even exist back then. So are you eating a paleo steak? Maybe not. So I think being very dogmatic and saying, I eat a Paleolithic diet, really opens you up to criticism. You have to realize that we're not just following the recipes in Rob Wolf's book or Mark Sisson's book or whoever book. They're guiding principles. What's appropriate to our species? Wild animals eat a paleo diet. Once you get that concept, you go, wow, really? And they're quite good at it. Amazingly enough, a lioness doesn't have to tell its cub that they need to chase that antelope for certain nutrients. There is no local pride nutritionist that tells them what to eat. And somewhere along the line, we lost that instinct that the animals still have. And zookeepers are generally quite good at recognizing this, but sometimes they do get things horribly wrong, and that's where you hear about gorillas getting heart disease, which they don't in the wild. Evolutionary principles, and this is the crux of it all. What is evolutionary principles? A bit of evolution 101. So the principle starts with an idea of natural variability. So the natural variability between the individuals of the same species can make you either more likely or less likely to survive in a given environment. There is always variability. Some people do it better, some people do it worse. Some microbes do it better, some do it worse. The ones that can develop the ability to withstand an antibiotic survive. So when you apply the selection pressure, for example, antibiotic in that particular species, the ones who can survive with an advantageous trait till the reproductive age are the ones that get to pass it on. Once they pass it on, the lineage that accumulates that advantageous trait is overall better adapted to living in their particular environment. So it gets better adapted, it survives, it accumulates. A couple of caveats here. You need to realize that evolution doesn't work from low order to high order. So we do not improve. There is no such thing as just getting better and better. We adapt, and all the other species that adapt to the environment as it is right now. And a lot of times in evolution, the adaptation is just a little tinkering, and it's an adaptation to an ever-changing environment rather than actual major change in the species line. And not all the adaptations are perfect. There are constraints in the evolution. One of the biggest one, for example, for us, is the fact that our bipedalism gave us a huge evolutionary advantage. However, it came at a cost, and the cost is a narrow pelvis. If we were to give birth to infants at the same level of maturity as other primates, we wouldn't be able to push them through the birth canal. God knows it's hard enough already. And unfortunately, that means that we have to give birth to babies that are helpless in the animal world. And that's why we have evolved multiple physiological and also social adaptations to allow us to care for babies and children for much longer in animal sort of world. Although somebody probably needs to mention to Generation Y that 27 is probably the ceiling. Let's stop it there. Also, we have to understand that evolution hasn't stopped 100,000 years ago. It has been continuing. One of the latest sort of works of evolution that we know of is the lactase persistence gene. As you know, lactase is an enzyme that cleaves lactose, and all mammals possess this enzyme which allows them to drink their mother's milk and incorporate the energy from the milk. Normally, it disappears to the equivalent human age of about 5. The introduction of domesticated cattle in about 10,000 years in Europe has given rise to a single mutation, one single nucleotide polymorphism, one change that has given lactase persistence. And it has given a huge advantage to those individuals because it allowed them to utilize energy from the milk of another species at a grown-up age. So they were able to survive longer, they were able to reproduce better. And interestingly enough, this particular mutation, lactase persistence, has also occurred in Africa and in other areas of the world, but it was coded by a different allele altogether. So, and that's an example of evolutionary convergence, where the same trait has simultaneously evolved using different mutations. So you can tell how evolutionary advantageous that was. And in medicine, in traditional medicine, we talk about lactose intolerance as a disease. And if you look at it from the evolutionary point of view, it's actually the lactase persistence that is mutant. It's mutant. Those of you who can drink milk, you're a mutant. And you can say that it's actually the lactose intolerance is normal, and it is still normal in the huge majority of the population of the world. What about grain intolerance? Those people who can eat grains, what do we think about that? Maybe, yes, it could have been. So how does it all revolve around medicine? So we're here talking about the diseases of civilization. And if there was a natural selection, how come these diseases haven't been wiped out? How come they haven't been selected out? How come we're still sick, if not sicker than ever? And a wonderful man, professor of evolutionary medicine, Peter Gluckman in University of Otago, calls them proximate and ultimate causes of disease. The proximate causes are the ones that we look at conventional medicine. And we look at body as a machine, and when something goes wrong, we get a disease. Something just happened, the screw went loose, whoops, don't know how, but the doctor is going to be a mechanic, the doctor is going to fix it. If you look at it from the evolutionary point of view, you look at it slightly differently, and you look at the body as the product of genes and a product of adaptation over millions of years, and also with interaction of those genes and their environment today. And is it possible that disease has been an adaptation strategy? And it requires a fair amount of trust in your body. It's good to ask yourself, why did this mechanism evolve in the first place? I give you a very simple example. You decide to give a talk at Brisbane Low Carb Down Under, and you come up on stage and there are 200 people looking at you, and your heart rate goes up and your hands start to shake a little bit, and it's not a very nice feeling. But we all recognize it for what it is. It's a fight or flight response, and it's an intricate ancient hormonal system that has been designed to flood your body with adrenaline and improve your cardiac output. But it's a nuisance. So currently I'm very maladapted to the environment that I find myself in. I should be running from a tiger. So these are the other maladaptations to our environment. The fruit that has once been seasonal is now available all the way around. The light that was only present for 10 to 12 hours a day, you can have blue light at any time. These are the healthiest people that you can think of, are the ones that are running inside on a treadmill, and this is how we work. So what are the examples of the evolutionary mismatch that we find ourselves in? The humans have an inability of synthesize vitamin C, unlike a lot of other species, and that tells us that for a long period of time during our evolution, vitamin C has been readily available in our diet, so we actually lost the ability to synthesize it. And when you don't have access to vitamin C, fruits and vegetables, you develop scurvy and you generally feel quite sick. We do not have the enzymes to efficiently convert, this is getting a bit technical, short chain polyunsaturated fatty acid to long chain. So that means that it doesn't matter how much flaxseed oil you'll be having, it's going to have a very, very poor conversion. You're going to have very little omega-3. And that tells us that for a huge amount of time in our evolutionary history, we had access to seafood and fish. Fructose. When was the time in our year when when the fructose was readily available to us? It would be at the end of summer when you need to produce a little bit of fat and prepare for a winter ahead for lean times. Currently, fructose is available all year round in the quantities that are not even comparable to the ones that we've had for millions of years. Another one that you've probably heard about today is insulin resistance, and you can hypothesize that insulin resistance is actually a protective mechanism that protects your cells from the excess of glucose, which is toxic to it. And it's a temporary mechanism, but unfortunately with a huge flood of glucose that we have through our day, every day, that mechanism becomes maladaptive. So how do you approach your diet? I know it's very complicated. It's really easy to sort of just get a bunch of recipes and maybe just calculate the carbs and off you go. But I ask you to take a little bit more control of your diet. So you've got to understand what you eat today and what you do today and how it is different. And that requires a little bit of learning and a little bit of education. Select food with high nutrient content because that's what your body wants and that's what it needs. We probably haven't evolved to detoxify a lot of the additional toxins and chemicals that are coming through our food chain right now. We need the healthy hormonal response from our food. Be aware of your background. Is it likely that you're able to tolerate dairy? If you're of an Asian background, it doesn't matter how many detox protocols you do, you probably will never be able to drink, pastured cream or butter. Have 300, 400 generations that have been able to eat rice. Look into seasonal variation of your food. I know blueberries are fantastic for you, but to have that access to them all year round, is it really something that our antioxidant system is prepared for? And also don't forget that evolution doesn't just act on the narrow nutrition spectrum only. Everything is interacted, everything is connected to one another. So you're looking at physical activity, you're looking at sleep. It's the same hormones that come into play, and I'll let Jamie talk about it a bit later on. So we go back to my definition of paleo, and if you learn it, you'll be able to tell it in an elevator. That's your elevator pitch. Somebody asks you, so what are you having for lunch today? How come you're not having a sandwich? And you go, I have a lifestyle and nutritional framework that relies on food high in nutrients and appropriate to my particular species, has basis in evolutionary principles. You will never get a question like that ever again. So this is the way to contact me. I blog at primalmedia.com when I can. I'm currently doing an emergency department rotation, so things are a little bit hairy. But I still try to stay on Twitter. 140 characters is just what I can do. You can contact me on Facebook. Jamie Scott and I are developing our new seminar and workshop program that we will be taking around Australia in 2013. So if you're interested in that, you can go to Eventbrite and have a look, or just contact us with your interest. Thank you so much for your time.